For every band, there is a moment when they know they have made it. For one band, this is not that moment.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You're a great crowd.
Okay, girls, we need the lane now. And your shoes.
They were three small-town girls with big-time dreams.
Who's a rock star?
I am.
Who wanted to share their music with the world.
We can't sit around here waiting for it to happen. We are musicians. We should be out there playing music. We do play.
Nobody believed in them,
You know, you suck.
but they believed in themselves.
We're special. Yeah, special ed.
Now, in a world of tough competition,
And that is so sad.
fate is giving the Pussycats the chance of a lifetime.
We'd love for you to sign with Mega Records.
How am I gonna pull this off? I'm a girl from Riverdale. I'm not a rock star.
You gotta believe in yourself.
Things are finally going their way. But between the mania,
Is that Josie?
They're gonna be huge.
the managers,
We decide everything. What's hot and what's not.
Welcome to your party.
Who else thinks that Fiona's a freak?
and the media,
We're gonna be on TRL.
this may be the toughest gig they've ever played.
Have you noticed that everything has sort of become all about Josie?
Josie.
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 Spin around. I made you a rock star.
Tell me you don't love that. Forget it.
You know I never liked you.
No matter what happens, we will always be friends first.
Are you gonna kill me with the guitar?
You messed with the wrong pussycat.
My bad.
Josie and the Pussycats.
Well, I really want to join the army. I'm going to be talking about the 2001 film Josie and the Pussycats. With me is Vic and Loki.
What up? I'm Vic.
Hello, my name's Loki.
Cool. All right. So anyway, what you guys think about the movie?
For me, I think the film is very ahead of its time when it comes to making a big franchise attached film into something more than just a franchise film. Although for me, it kind of got repetitive, and I kind of got the gist after a certain point. But as I can get into it later, but I do respect it.
Okay, Loki, just let's hear your kind of like quick general thoughts on this.
I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely felt it was very ahead of its time in some ways, both as a comic book film. I feel like it did kind of predict a lot of things that would happen. The comic book film industry, as well as the kind of satire of it, felt very ahead of its time. And it was just generally a pretty fun film.
Yeah, I agree with all that. You know, it's so it's so funny that we all use the word ahead of its time. But at the same time, this is, at least visually in a lot of ways, it is so 2000s. It's so early. It's early 2000s. It's the most early 2000s movie ever. Interesting fact, it was one of the last films to come out that did show the World Trade Center. So that really shows it as like, yeah, this is the most 2000 film you can really think of.
Oh
It's
yeah.
aggressively 2000.
Oh yeah. Well, so for context, I'm 24. So a lot of what was shown, like the fashion or even the technology, I
Oh, you mean the
remember as a
Dreamcast?
kid seeing stuff like that in TV shows, or more accurately, I would see it in advertisements, which I think is intentional with this movie. But I do recall seeing a lot of was shown when I was a kid, And there, when watching it, there was a kind of nostalgia that I had, even though I only remember maybe seeing clips of this movie on TV, or I just didn't have like a connect. I never was like connected with the movie or its property, but like the general like aesthetic and what was being tapped into, I was very familiar with it. Even if I was a little kid and not like attached to those scenes, I would remember seeing it. And it was kind of like a surreal experience in a way, kind of going like, oh man, I remember this, I remember this, I remember this. So on that level, the film does serve as a good like kind of piece of nostalgia that I both had and didn't have in a simultaneous way.
Yeah. I you can't get more early 2000s than the Sega Dreamcast when you really think about it. There's so many.
No, like
Yeah. Yeah, I
there is like you can't get any more 2000s than that.
yeah,
I
Aside
mean,
from like showing a PlayStation 2.
yeah. I mean,
no.
what was the
Dream
lifespan of the Dreamcast was what, like 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
It
like
is.
that's like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
thing was around from like 2000 to 2004. That's
Yeah,
very of an era.
no, it was like 1999 to 2002. It basically got crushed by the PlayStation 2. That's why it's so funny where it's like the climax of this movie takes place at Sega's stadium. It's like, oh yeah, no,
Oh
Sega's
yeah,
gonna
back
do
when
real
Sega
good in the
still had like
future. That
Sega
Dreamcast,
still had
everyone
some sort of
wants
like
one.
cultural foothold outside of just making games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's most known for its franchise Sonic the Hedgehog, which is more known for its fetish art and a certain guy that made a crossover with Sonic and Pikachu than it is the actual games.
Sorry, I'm praying. I'm trying to ward off the evil.
Oh, come on, man.
Well,
So, yeah, well, and Sega makes sense because Archie Comics, they publish the Sonic the Hedgehog comics and stuff.
yep.
Josie and the Pussycats starts as an Archie comic. You know, originally it was just called Josie, and it was she has red hair, Archie has red hair. She was just female Archie for the most part. But then something happened. In 1969, there was an Archie cartoon,
Yep.
and they had a song called Sugar Sugar on it, and that song became a super big mainstream hit to the point where it actually inspired Hanna-Barbera to make Scooby-Doo, and basically as a way to try to like sell bubblegum pop. So like, Scooby-Doo started as a way to sell bubblegum pop, and Archie Comics is like, "Oh man, we should get these Hanna-Barbera guys to make a cartoon for us because it's working so good with Scooby-Doo. We know that Archie stuff, let's sell some bubblegum pop." So they take Josie, they retool her to be Josie and the Pussycats. Um, so that then it would be easier for Hanna-Barbera to make a show where they can sell bubblegum pop. This is actually the first example of what we would call today brand synergy, where, all the media is altered to like better reflect each other and blah, 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 like what they do with Marvel Comics now with the MCU to help, the comics promote the movies promote the comics. It's like that cycle.
Which that is very common within comic book history because if you read like books about Marvel Comics and what Stan Lee was wanting to do with the properties, he was always wanting to make like movies or TV shows and especially toys. And that's a completely different conversation entirely. But but going to like Josie and the Pussycats, that is kind of like, at least with like the real world stuff, that's always kind of what it is. You make a brand through like kind of like a relatively simple in the eyes of many medium like comic books, and you just grow from there.
Yeah. So anyway, they make this TV show, Josie and the Pussycats. It's basically just like Scooby Doo. They have a character, the manager guy, Alexander, is straight up just a rip off. They changed his personality from the comics to basically be a Shaggy rip off. In the cartoon, he's just a rip off of Shaggy. He's played by the same guy. He even looks like Shaggy. They have the character Alan M, who looks just like Fred, except he's somehow more bland. The Josie and the Pussycats cartoon is, I watched a little bit of it. It's Scooby Doo, but just worse. Like, imagine Scooby Doo, but all the stuff you like about Scooby Doo, like, oh, there's a cool monster. Look at the spooky space kook. They're solving a mystery. Not there at all. It's just, it's every episode, they're going to a gig, and then there's some contrived reason for them getting lost or whatever, and then they get chased around by someone. It's not like an interesting monster. It's just like a guy, which is like a guy, just some guy in a trench coat who's like, oh, and all that, and it's just worse. It's worse than every way except for the theme song, which has the actually pretty good animation in it, and they reuse that animation at least twice every episode. It's insane. So it's bad cartoon. People only remember it for the theme song. Do you guys know the theme song? It's like what is it? Josie and the Pussycat, long ears.
I've heard of it. Like I think I've heard like kind of like the main part many times because a lot of that would be homaged. So I am familiar with it.
Yeah, you probably saw that Cartoon Network short thing, the music evolution thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, so Scooby-Doo knockoff. No one really gives a shit at all because they're minor comic book characters in Archie comics that get a get a bad TV show. But then late 90s, in the 90s, you have all this stuff in the 60s and 70s that's getting like TV show movies. So like Brady Bunch, Addams Family, Dudley Do Right, so on. A year, like 2 years after this, you'd get the Scooby Doo movie. So Rocking Bullwinkle. So like there was like a trend around the time of being like, oh, this thing has like name recognition. Like kids know what this is. Parents of those kids know what it is. Let's just toss out a movie, boomer nostalgia, or like whatever, that generation nostalgia and all that, and like make money off that. And that's basically the plan with Josie and the Pussycats. Just be that, people know the name, maybe they'll go see it. Um, yeah. But then you get Harry Elfont and Deborah Haplin, who they directed. They wrote and direct the teen comedy film Can't Hardly Wait, which for research I watched. I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was kind of funny. The direction had a little bit of style. They had some neat little transitions. There was like a point POV shots and stuff. I'm blank, but it looked good. I would definitely say, there's definitely real effort put into it. It's a little bit about something about moving on from high school and all that. Like it's not like, even though it was advertised as basically, American Pie knockoff or whatever, it definitely was not trying to be that. It was definitely trying to be a somewhat funny but serious drama. But they also worked on other stuff. They worked on the sequel to the Brady Bunch movie, a very Brady sequel. They worked on the live-action Flintstones sequel, Rock Vegas.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. I still can't believe that that's a thing that exists, but yes.
Well, if
By the credit.
if that didn't exist, then we might not have Josie and the Pussycats because Alan
True.
Cummings was in the Flintstone sequel, and he's in this movie. That's kind of how all this stuff came together. But yeah, so they have experience with like these types of movies, what these types of movies are, and they definitely go into this trying to make it meta, and also kind of make it a little bit like subversive. It's using like this like name recognition brand movie as a way to kind of tell their own kind of unique story and stuff, very similar to like Greta Gerwig with the Barbie movie. I know when the Barbie movie came out, a lot of
Mhm.
people saying it's kind of like Josie and the Pussycats, where it's like this director's just kind of using this franchise film to really tell like their own kind of like film, and it's going to kind of be a meta satire parody kind of thing. I
Mhm.
do think Josie and the Pussycats is better than the Barbie movie in a couple ways. I think it overall executes what it's doing way way more smoothly than the Barbie movie, and I definitely Parker Posey versus late career Will Ferrell. I'm going with Parker Posey all the time. She's
That's
lovely.
fair.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Look, Vic, you saw a little bit of Can't Hardly Wait. Do you have anything to say about it?
I can definitely say when it comes to like the look of the film, I could tell that it was kind of made it was directed by the same two people. And I don't mean that in a bad way whatsoever. I mean like these two have a very set style that they are going for, which you could maybe argue is in line with what was coming out in American, movies at the time. At least with this type of in this like scene, I guess, with movies. But it also like just kind of shows that they were like because they were like of the time period of the late 90s, early 2000s, they've become this like good kind of time capsule for what this era was like. And I think like going to Pussycats, I think that's what it expresses rather well is like the overall early 2000s ethos, or or at least of America. Can't talk about it anywhere else, but you have
No,
the
this
you
is
have the hair.
exactly. I guarantee you, this is exactly what Pakistan looked like in 2000. Exactly.
Absolutely.
They were all about their
But
boy
you know
bands and Steve Madden shoes.
absolutely. But like, when it comes to the branding or the hairstyles or what like how like boy bands were extreme, or well, these type of like all gender pop groups were very big at the time, whether it's boy bands or girl groups. Uh, that's what I think this film captures, but I also think what this film captures, which is something that I did also see as a kid, was increasing what's the word I'm looking for? Increasing flakiness is probably the best way I could say it, because the film talks about how like we talk about how like trends like come and go, and now with the internet they seem to come really fast and really quick and then just go away. But it's something that I think was really starting in the 2000s, where you would have like things that were cool like the 1 minute were not cool the next, especially with music. Um, a lot of groups you'll find rise and fall, in my opinion, way faster than they did probably in decades prior, because it became um it ev- sorry, just I have an idea. It's because even how the film is like overall shot, it feels like a very, very long MTV music video.
In a lot of
And
ways, yeah. I could also argue probably pre 9/11 2000s. Like definitely 9/11 and its impact. Yeah, it definitely caused people's outlooks, feelings, perspectives, what they wanted to see change. It's a big impactful, the war, all that big impact on like popular culture and stuff.
yeah, and then, and obviously since this was filmed prior to it, you already can see like, it's kind of like with those like three bullies. And it's funny because going into real life, I remember I read an interview from Kurt Cobain, and he talked about how when he was in Nirvana, the people that would or the type of people he said that would have like picked on him were now then the people coming to his concerts. And so with the movie, there's of course the three girls who are calling them like And that's another thing I liked about. That's one thing I can like about this movie is that the language is completely unfiltered. They're just calling either people skanks or special ed or just like nasty things.
They say cut.
That
They say shit like twice in this movie, which is
yeah,
impressive because it's PG-13. I thought you could only get to say it once, or maybe that's just the F word.
Yeah,
I think. Oh, sorry, Loki. Yeah, you can say.
I think that that's mostly relegated to the F word.
Yeah.
But it's a film that like is both like it just. I think that's one thing. Like even if I'm not the hugest fan of the movie, it's one thing I can really appreciate is that it just captures like it's a type of satire. It actually reminded me in a lot of ways of Showgirls, where you have a film that like captures an era and especially an era of um like frivolousness. Although with Showgirls, it's obviously way more sexual than Josie and the Pussycats, even though Pussycats has its own kind of like subtle, well, not subtle, but kind of like, its own sly, like sexual comments.
Yeah.
Like with the beginning with,
Yeah.
honk if you like pussy or something like that, and
Yeah,
the cars
honk if you
crash into each other.
honk if you like pussy cats. They do that joke a second time later. I really appreciate that they did not overdo that because that seems like a joke that in a movie like this they would just like run into the ground.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's kind of the thing where I can appreciate that the movie, because I will admit, like, the movie kind of goes into a territory that I would expect, and then it also kind of does things that I would not expect. And again, it's mainly with the satirical atmosphere of it all, and just how um almost overbearing it is. Like no, at almost no point does anything feel like it's like a proper living, breathing environment. It almost just feels like you're trying to be sold something. You're trying to like if they're not wanting to sell you like but like a
Zima.
phone, it's a car, or it's go to Target, or it's to like do all of these different things. There's no like things that even don't make sense to be put into like it doesn't make sense for a plane to have like advertisement in it. But then it's kind of like in this with how the world kind of views the culture, it's like no, this actually sadly does make way too much sense
It's
for there to be.
It's normalized. It's inundated. We allow it just in our homes. We wear shirts that have brand logos on them. Like right now, my socks say Puma. I'm an
Oh
advertisement.
yeah, you see the Puma. You see the Puma. Like even in, I think one scene that really got to me, is like the aquarium scene where it's like you would not, in my opinion, you would not think in a million years like an area where you're supposed to be looking at aquatic life would have advertisement there, but yet there is somehow an area where advertisement could be presented.
Yeah.
Oh
even
yeah,
if
there
it
was.
makes, even if it makes little to no sense, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, even then, that's probably one of the scenes that have the least amount of actual advertisement. Probably because they couldn't like put that stuff up in like an actual aquarium. But think about this. I mean, the aquarium, has all over its place, has its own logo, its own advertisement. I mean, yeah, it's not advertising Coke, but it's advertising something. National Aquarium, come to the National Aquarium, come to the National Aquarium. It's just yeah, so it's like, it's not just, advertising isn't just selling Coke. It's
Oh,
selling
absolutely
something,
not.
and everyone, whether or not they want to, whether or not they are intentionally aware, are probably selling something. Like unintentionally right behind me, there's like a little trophy thing, and that trophy has a logo to an organization. So every time I turn on this camera, intentional or not, I'm promoting something. Loki, do you got any let's actually so the film, it opens up airport, All the girls are freaking out about the hot new boy band, de jour. Do you guys know what de jour stands for?
I know it's a French word,
Yeah,
or
it's French for, well, Loki, do you know?
I don't off the top of my head.
It's French for of the day. It's sometimes used as a slang word that typically means current, uh, yeah, short-lived, and sometimes it's kind of used as a little bit of a meaningless word, kind of like cool. It's like, oh, that's cool. Cool, it's like it doesn't really mean anything exactly. It's just kind of a word people say, but it typically does just mean of the day, of the time. So that's what their band's called, of the day, short-lived, which, it's
I
funny.
love, yeah, that's what I love in this scene is like you have like, all these like conflicts of people saying like, you stole my face or I want this. And then you have a guy like trying to say like, de jour means friendship. And it's like, it obviously does not mean that, but they're like, it's just like they have no idea even what they are. So they're just trying to violently grasp at anything, even if they act like children in the process.
So, guys, what did you think about the band DeJour? Here's something you should know. I'm sure you noticed Seth Green was one of the boy band members. All the boy band members, they were in the film Can't Hardly Wait. So, what did you think about them?
I think that could have been like just a like kind of joke with the directors, kind of like because what they do is basically they do a bait and switch where it's like you think you're gonna get like Josie and the Pussycats immediately, but then you are then introduced to this group, and if you're saying like these are the main leads from that movie, then it's like, oh, we're gonna show the leads from our previous movie, only to then like get these people out of our movie like very quickly. So it might have just been like kind of like just the directors like having fun with their own idea.
Yeah, I mean, one of them is the guy from Scrubs. One not Seth Green, but the other guy. He like works on Robot Chicken with Seth Green, and the other guy, the guy that says "to join me in friendship," that's actually Dean Martin's grandson. Crazy, right? But yeah, they were all in Can't Hardly Wait, and it's so funny that this is the boy band, because when you think of like boy bands, yeah, that's who I would think of. The people from Can't Hardly Wait, Seth Green, yeah, that's a boy band. But what do you guys think about?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about their hit song "Backdoor Lover"?
Loki, but what do you think of it? Because I can say it, but like, what do you think first?
Certainly sounded of its era.
Yeah.
It sounded like what I would expect, like something from like NSYNC or more like NSYNC's bad copycats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a banger.
No, but it is very like easy to listen to, very kind of like fluff music. But I also find it interesting that they're talking about it's like the hit single, and they're never, and this I know is intentional because you see it later in the movie with the Pussycats, is that there's not like this desire for like to have a great body of work, but to have a one or two songs that are like instantly recognizable, and then that's what we're going to base the entire band's or group's identity around.
Yeah, it's not real. Yeah, it's just about like the hit and all that. I mean, that's how pop music has kind of worked all the way back into the 50s. It's like you put out the hit and then you fill the album with covers and like who cares? I mean, that's what people like. Basically, people kept doing that until like the Beatles came around. Like they were the guys who kind of like changed it, made like, oh, you should actually like write your own songs for the most part. You shouldn't just like have two songs and then like your album's just whatever. Like, what if that actually mattered? But what I mean, guys, the song "Backdoor Lover." Did you guys think it was funny? Did you kind of like it? Or?
I mean, I understand pretty instantly what they meant by "Backdoor Lover," but it's because that it's because like it's portrayed in such a very like poppy, fun, like kind of like fashion. You don't automatically think, oh wow, this is actually kind of a very dirty song.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I like. That's what I like about it because you have all these people screaming about this song, how much they love Dior, how much they love the song, and then you actually listen to the song lyrics. It's very dirt, which is like a common thing. I mean, Beatles, "Ticket to Ride," that song's about a prostitute. Roxanne's about a prostitute that gets played at weddings. But anyway, so Dior, they get onto their plane, which the plane is filled with Target logos, which, advertising. It's also kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen to them. And, they start arguing and whatever. And then they find out there's something weird about their new signal. There's like weird sounds on it or something. And then their manager, played by Alan Cummings, decides that he's going to kill them. So he orders the pilot, who's played by the director, take the Chevy to the levee, which of course reference to the song American Pie, which is, mostly about the plane crash that Buddy Holly died in. So that's
like it's very obvious what they are like alluding to, the day that Rock died.
Yeah. What would music do without Dior? It's the real tragedy.
I mean, of course.
I mean, they instantly forget about him so much they didn't even bother to find the debris of the plane. They just, nope, we're done.
Oh yeah, and what I love is that they because they show later on the news report of this band having disappeared, but then for the majority of the movie, no one is asking about Dior, no one is questioning where they are, and it actually touches on an idea that I've always felt, especially now with social media, is that art and the people that create the art or supposedly are creating the art are viewed as commodities rather than living people, and is just only there for a basic sort of kind of instantaneous feel good kind of energy, and then nothing else. And then when that doesn't satisfy you anymore, or when it's gone in the case of them disappearing, then they just latch on to the next thing, and there's no lasting legacy, or there's no impact. It's just it was there, now it's not there. Hot flash.
Yeah, definitely. I really like. But that plane's the plane's the first time you really get example of just how egregious advertising is, because it's this is a private plane, but there's Target logos everywhere. There's logos for soap, shampoo, laundry detergent, Coca-Cola. It just egregious. It's just I mean, that is how a lot of people make their money, just advertising the stuff. But so then Alan Cummings, Wyatt, I think, yeah, he's got to find a new band, and that's when we get introduced to the Pussycats in the little transition. They do that little edit, transition where it's leopard spots or whatever. What you guys think about those little leopard spot transitions?
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel back in the 2000s, there was this real placement of very artificial feeling editing. I feel like we've kind of lost the art of because there isn't very much suspension of disbelief. They're very jarring. Yeah. They have a lot of style.
I think we should bring back the star wipe. That's what I think. I was so when Premiere Pro got rid of the star wipe in their editing, it's thanks, dude. I wanted to make an entire project where every edit was a star wipe. I mean, come on.
No, yeah. Again, it's more just when it comes to these types of reactions, it's more just how very just outright bad things have gotten and how stale things have gotten.
Well, this is just a result of nerds, nitpicky nerds, the same people that say George Lucas ruined their childhood because he put an extra rock in front of R2-D2. It's no, star wipes are cheesy. Star wipes are stupid. Don't have them. And now, guess what? We don't got any wipes, dude. We're wipeless. We live in a wipeless society. You know what happens when you don't wipe? very bad things happen if you don't wipe, and that's where our society is. So thank you, nerds. You deserve those terrible Star Wars movies. You really do. But
It's
we
a
have a little
sad
sad
world.
world. Sad world. Mad world. Mad
I
world.
do appreciate how much this film does. It's kind of tongue in cheek about how artificial it is. Like it kind of plays into the satire because like it's all about this kind of artificial industry.
Yeah.
It does also really embrace that stuff.
Yeah, it's
We'll get to
that's
that
kind
at
of the
the
thing
big
that I
finale.
like because it's not a film that is, even though I kind of have an issue with how it's balanced, I do like that the film is sincere all the way through while also taking note of how like everything has just become a product, but it doesn't like try to be more than what it is at the same time. So, like it's just trying to be and succeeding somewhat in being just an entertaining fluff movie while also having this satirical edge to it, but it's a satirical edge that is actually being like capitalized, at least visually explored, at least visually thematically being implemented. And that's, I just, anytime with satire, if or like poking fun at parts of like a increasingly commercialized society, or at the time increasingly commercialized, now it's just been completely commercialized in and branded.
If only this film was successful at the box office. If only Robert Ebert had given it a proper review and not just instantly dismiss it as Spice World 2, we would be living in a utopian society.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Roger Ebert.
You
You
really screwed
were
us on that one, man.
He had his occasional bad takes.
He did. I think he was right more than wrong, and probably people would disagree with me on that. I don't think he ever had a bad take. I think he just had a different perspective. Like if he said, "Oh, this film's bad because X, Y, and Z," I'd be like, "Well, I mean, I guess those are actual problems, sure, but what about blah blah blah?" But yeah, he was just phoning it in with that joke. I mean, he defended Good Burger, but he won't give Josie and the Pussycats the time of day. It's like, come on, dude. You gave a perfect score to Space Jam.
Perfect score? That's crazy.
Yeah, like a perfect.
I actually did not know that.
Insane.
Fascinating. I'll have to read that review.
I mean, he probably has a good reason. I would probably disagree with it, but it was probably an actual reason. Probably just thinks kids would
I think
like
he's
it.
articulate. He
Yeah.
definitely. I understand his perspective.
Yeah.
Very much disagree.
So we were introduced to these characters through this kind of like little music video thing. What do you guys think about the characters? I will say they are definitely more fleshed out here with like personality traits and stuff than like the Hanna-Barbera version. So that's already like
so
yeah, like they have like one or in the TV show, because it's like you got like 7 characters and they're all just like they take the 4 characters from Scooby-Doo and they just spread those traits across the cast in that cartoon. So it's like Fred but blander, Shaggy but blander, Velma but blander. Here they have like a handful of like traits. Val, I guess she's sporty, she's smart, she helps people. Melody, she's the dumb one, the annoying one, but like she likes puppies and is like sweet and nice. Josie knows stuff about like cars or something and is like the leader, main girl. Well, what'd you guys think about that little like intro thing?
Again, it falls into like how like aesthetically it is like a music video. You get like an introduction to the characters. You get like you figure out who they are very quickly, and they don't need to deviate all that much. Because I think the performances, especially by sorry, I just need to like get the names. Rachel A. Cook and Rosario Dawson, I find to be very fun. Tara Reid, I know what she is doing, and I know that's the point of her character, but there was points where like it started to just kind of like Like I already got it. Like she's not that bright, but also by the climax, of course, knows martial arts and is good at fighting.
Yeah, that is a thing. Josie and the Pussycats has like it does this meta stuff. It does like kind of takes on tropes and stuff, but it still is the Josie and the Pussycats movie. It still is a cartoon live action cartoon movie. So of course like Melody is going to say a bunch of dumb stuff that's like kind of annoying and not really funny most of the time. Like you're still going to have that's my biggest problem with this movie is that at the end of the day you still kind of have some of that stuff you would see in live action cartoon movie. Some of the stuff, yeah, I mean, they add a little bit of a meta stuff. I, I mean, they do it way better than like other movies that try to do like this, that try to do meta stuff, where it's just like we're aware this is bad, let's continue to be bad. Most of the time they are trying to like add a twist to it, add like a unique thing to it. Like they're trying, but sometimes it does just like not really work. Like these jokes aren't funny or this thing's annoying. Like example, like I'm not really a big fan of like any of the Alan M. Josie stuff because it's like, oh, of course, duh, it's Josie and the Pussycats. Alan M's her love interest. They have to be together, but it's just like they don't really.
Yeah, that stuff was kind of like I was just really not vibing with at all because you oh sorry, yeah, Loki.
It's very it feels a little shoehorned in for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because once again, like for the most part, there's not like a funny thing to it. There's not like a.
Mhm.
It's mostly taken seriously. Um, I'm just not a super fan of it. I wish there was. I wish it was maybe a little bit funny because they change him from the cartoon a bit, where he's like this guy that plays like acoustic guitar, and I think they should have kept this. Like I said, like no, make him Fred but blander. At least that would be kind of funny. That would be like a that would be like a commentary thing if you're like aware of how like bland and boring like in something like that. That would be something interesting. But it's like he's just this guy who plays acoustic guitar. That's really it.
Yeah, that's the part where like the like especially by the ending, where like that's kind of like where I have like the issue of the film like being like a satire, but also there are points where you can clearly see that they had to be more audience friendly. Like they could never like completely commit to it being a satire. They could only go so far, but had to keep a few things legitimate.
I would kind of disagree when we get to that. I mean, weird thing is that like Archie comics, for the most part, hands off. They only had like it's just like, well, you can't have them be too mean. So like have a scene where they brush their teeth to show kids that dental hygiene's important. And they just can't be too mean. And that was basically their only notes. Other than that, pretty much free reign when it really thinks about it. Um, but yeah, so the band, they have their little personality. I like the punk pop soundtrack. I mean, I really dig it. You guys like it?
Oh no, that I enjoyed. It's not
part.
entirely my type of music. I know that might be like very shocking to hear some people given like what my general taste is. Like you would not like pop punk. Oh my god, how daring of you. But I enjoy it for what it is. And with the film it does work because it adds just to the general ethos.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that based on like what the movie's about, it makes sense that they would do pop punk. The album was more successful than the movie. I mean, so Vic, you're telling me you're not a punk rock prom queen?
I sadly am not. I would not even be a prom king.
Dang. I like pop punk. Big defender. It's overhated. And partly it is hated because it's successful in mainstream compared to a lot of regular punk. That's just like music history. Like Green Day was always called pop punk, but like it didn't have a negative connotation to it until it became successful and like mainstream. Like, oh, now this is an issue, but yeah, it's like whatever. I mean, they all do heroin, so it's like, of course, they're all like fucked up and stupid. Uh, yeah, but that's an interesting thing. Is hang on, I just blocked out. Uh, yeah, so they're playing their song. They're down on their luck. They're not doing super successful. They go back to their house, where they got their manager Alexander and his sister Alexandria, I believe. In the comic, they're both kind of bland here for the most part, but that is part of the joke because the only reason these characters are here is because they have to be here. Because they were in the cartoon, they were in the comics, they have to be included. What do you guys kind of think about that?
Can you repeat that just a bit? I didn't quite catch the end.
That the Alexander siblings, for the most part in this movie, they really serve no purpose. They're just kind of there. But that's kind of the joke because they're only here because they have to be here because it's the Josie and the Pussycats movies and their main characters.
Yeah.
Oh no, they make a direct reference. Like there's a point in the plane scene where the sister outright says, basically, I was in the comic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I appreciated the meta elements. I feel like and that's kind of one of the parts of the film that kind of felt almost ahead of its time.
Yeah, definitely.
Meta humor is kind of a little overdone, and especially when you see stuff like Deadpool come out, there's a lot of that, and it can be a little grating just how much.
Yeah.
In a lot of other comic books, but it felt a little more genuine. I feel like a lot of modern comic book movies have this kind of need to mock themselves, to be honest.
Yeah, it comes from like an
Sometimes.
insecurity, or it comes from a desire to get cheap laughs.
Yeah. Like a lot of MCU films, like the joke is that it's like, oh, we're dudes in spandex, isn't that silly? And like with these older 2000s comic book movies like Josie and the Pussycats, like they're kind of poking fun at themselves, but they still embrace it. Like they admit it's kind of dumb, but they're like, and that's kind of okay.
Yeah. I feel like if anyone else made a movie like that Alexandria character, they would probably be constantly making a joke about her silly haircut.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie, they only make that joke once, and they do build up to it and all that.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of a little bit of a clever and funny bit because there's like times where it's like those characters could be helpful and actually partake in the plot, but instead they just stand in the background and be annoying. Like they serve no purpose, and that's like the joke.
They're just there and like kind of derail the plot or like are kind of rude to the lead.
Yeah, they're just pointless additions that are just there because they have to be there. These things, certain things, are just contractually obligated to happen. But yeah, so Wyatt, he plays the latest DeJour CD at the local record store, and it inspires all the kids to start buying products and stuff. Because that's kind of the big thing about the movie is that the music is there to sell you stuff, that to get you to want to buy things, buy new clothes, buy new shoes, buy the record and all that. And Josie and the Pussycats, they're doing sort of a live show outside, and Wyatt ends up looking for a band, and he ends up seeing them, and how he decides that they're the ones to pick is he just pulls out a CD and he sees that, he puts it like in front of them, and it looks good to him. So that's how like he picks his people, of not like, oh, are they good at music or anything like that? Do they have anything worthwhile, anything interesting, anything good? It's just, do you look good on the album cover? Okay, cool. Are you marketable? That's what we want. And then he signs them. Yeah, it's so good. Of course, after they get signed up, of course, there's a early 2000s like makeup montage, slow mo, fast mo footage, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of like editing stuff. You guys got like a kick out of that?
Yeah, it's fun. Yet again, it's this whole kind of lost art of like,
Yeah.
very artificial filmmaking, like these fisheye lenses and
Oh yeah, fisheye. I'm not the biggest fan of the fisheye. I knew a guy who called it fish island lens.
interesting.
Yeah, he thought it.
I guess.
Yeah, he thought it was called a fish eyelid. Weird.
There was a fisheye. It was like a shot of a car head on kind of driving, and it was like very stretched. And there was a few.
Oh, but I like that. I'm actually a
It's
big fan of
fun.
the stretch stuff, fisheye. But there is one shot later that I'm just not a fan of. I think it generally looks bad. But so they're getting the band, and the band goes from the Pussycats to Josie and the Pussycats. And basically why its reasoning is, well, that's more marketable. That's
Yeah,
more
and what I
marketable.
find like really fascinating is like with Valerie, she's paying attention to the fact like oh no, it was either Valerie or Josie who said like we haven't even put out any music yet. Like we
Yeah.
haven't even put out anything if like how what would people like, cuz they're focused on their music actually, and not meaning something in that it has to be deep, but something that people would actually like and people could actually connect to, rather than, oh, let's just try to find a way to make money off of this.
Marketability, profitability, all that kind of stuff. And of course, the reason they changed the name to Josie and the Pussycats, because that's what the band is actually called in the cartoon and comic, so it has to be that name. Because of course, why is this movie being made? Why do movies like this get made? Name recognition. So they do a meta joke about that. But one thing I do like about that is it's not just done to be like a meta thing. It is also part of like the evil record company's plan to sow division so that they're distracted and they won't be able to catch on to the fact that they're being manipulated. Which I like that. It's not just a meta joke. It's actually like a part of the plot.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we get to a movie starts to get really good at this point. We're introduced to the head of the Mega Records, played by Parker Posey. What do you guys think about Parker Posey?
I'm a bit torn because there are I get the point of, I know what her character actually is, and the idea of how someone who is insecure themselves just tries to get better by just going after trends. I think just in some of the ways that they try to show her awkwardness, it makes the scenes a bit clunky, and that you could argue is intentional, which I can accept. It just there are a couple of points where some of the scenes weren't flowing, and I think a way that I think could have been much smoother. But when it comes to her like general performance, I think she's a lot of fun. I think it's very interesting how she like dons all these like really bizarre costumes, and what do they really mean about her? Well, we don't really know, and she doesn't know either.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. I think Parker Posey, great actress. I think she's super funny. I think her and Alan Cummings, that's really what carries a lot of this movie. I think
That
if
yeah,
if
I would agree
like
with that.
Yeah.
imagine if these roles were instead played by just some random like comedian person who was popular, like some like a-hole who was on SNL or like whatever. Like it would be so much, it'd be so terrible, it'd be so bad because those people aren't like really actors. They're just like comedians. They're not as good at like doing this kind of stuff. But Parker Posey, funny, great actress. She's super duper cute. I have a when I first saw House of Yes, who Rachel Lee Cook also in that movie. Interesting enough, massive crush on her. She just has such a unique style and personality. I think she looks so pretty. Massive crush. That's one of the reasons I like this movie. Massive crush. A massive crush on her. I think she's great in this movie. I think she's so cute in this movie. I think she's funny in this movie. I just love her so gosh darn much. But let's. This is where kind of the big reveal of. Wait, Loki, did you have any thoughts on Parker Posey? Do you have a
Oh
massive
no,
crush on her too? No. Okay, so
I wasn't a big.
this is where she goes into detail about what Mega Record actually does, which is the music is filled with subliminal messages that basically are used to control the youth and also, of course, sell them things to make money. They have all these departments that decide what's going to be trendy, what's going to be popular, and then they use the subliminal messages to promote that, to promote consumerism, to promote conformity. Oh, we missed a classic scene when Wyatt plays that record, the latest Dior signal, and there's like this one punk type chick who's like, "Oh, I hate pop music," and he's like, "Oh, really? Well, I would like to hear your thoughts. Come with me." And then he tosses her in a van, and then when the van drives off, you then see the logo for MTV. I thought that was like a pretty funny little visual gag thing they did.
Oh no, I liked it too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but then she goes into how like they do subliminal messaging to basically sell things, get people to do things, which happens in real life. I mean, subliminal messaging, advertisement, not like in a weirdo conspiracy way like this, of course, but just yeah. I really like the little PSA they show with like Eugene Levy, where he's like explaining to all these like government people how like media manipulation works, and I really like the line, if it's good for the economy, that means it's good for the country.
Yeah, again, that's where like a lot of like the Paul Verhoeven similarities kind of come into play with how purposefully caricature heavy that these people come off as. There's no sense of like sincerity. It's just all just buzzword, sell this, America.
Yeah, it really does. It does feel very Verhoeven-esque. Like the scene like that where it's like, God bless America, the most ass-kicking country around. And then there's like a lady with a bikini waving the flag. It's like, oh, this must be good. America, right? But yeah. And of course we find out that at the concert, the Josie and Pussycat concert, they have these little ears that people have to put on to listen, little cat ears. And basically, they're going to basically be able to take their brainwashing to the next level. More conformity, more control, all that kind of stuff. But then there's a scene where you find out that Fiona has a little bit of a plan behind all that. Loki, do you got something about that?
Huh?
Well, I just thought
On the plan.
I just thought you said something.
Oh no, I just unmuted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then they have a little bit where she says something. They do the joke where a person says something and they think like no one hears them, and then the guy turns around and is like, "Actually, I can hear you. What was all that?" And normally not a big fan of that bit, but it just like when I say Parker Posey kind of carries this, like she kind of does, because it definitely she makes it way funnier than it actually is.
Mhm.
Very energetic performance. She's really very good at this kind of stuff.
I can definitely agree where and that's because I could only notice it, like the type of jokes they have for her, I would argue sometimes aren't the best, and she just makes the best of what she can do. And at the very least, it's really her energy, and then her like again the bizarre outfits she's wearing that help like kind of sell this very like kind of off kilter character.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, of course, Josie and the Pussycats, the band, even after all this concert stuff's been already paid for and set up, now they're actually going to start recording music. So they record the music using the Mega Sound 8000, which is going to improve their sound. And it's also how they're going to basically put the subliminal messages in the music. And then you get a little music video thing. I like the style, it does the split screen, little fun transitions. Yeah, it's 2000s cheese, but I do enjoy it. It is fun, and I like the pop punk. I think a lot of these songs are just straight up like bangers, fun to listen to, and I do appreciate that, like, a lot of the lyrics are in reference to like the movie, like, oh, pretend to be. It's like the song's called "Pretend to Be Nice," and all these record people, they're pretending to be nice. They're pretending, they're putting on a front of like smiles, but they're actually like evil.
Yeah, I can agree. Um, yeah, sorry, I don't have anything else to add to that section.
Yeah, and I like the bit where after every time they release a new song, people start wearing, like, they start wearing pink. Then they make a song. Everyone starts wearing orange, and then after the Josie and the Pussycat song becomes number one, everyone's wearing blue stuff. Everyone's just kind of falling for this, and that I like that visual bit of, like, you see a lot of blue. Everyone's wearing blue. There's a lot of blue backgrounds, blue tint to things. I really like that. I really appreciate, like I said, it's like, a lot of times you compare this to like something like Alvin and the Chipmunks or like whatever. There's like really no real effort put into anything, even direction or visual style. But this movie does have like a style. It does have identity to it. It has effort put into it. Even if, like, maybe some of the jokes aren't funny, maybe some stuff doesn't work. They're trying. They're genuinely trying, which is nice.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's like a heart to this movie.
Yeah. And this is one thing I do like about the movie is, some people kind of argue that, well, it's like you're still showing the ads, but I would say no. What an interesting detail is during that little music video, you see Fiona and she's fantasizing about merchandise opportunities. All the things pop up. That's actual merchandise that was connected to the movie. And I think it's interesting that they're showing that merchandise, the stuff they're supposed to be selling, they're showing it in a negative light. They're showing it as though it is bad, which is something that I think is interesting. Like, I don't really recall the Barbie movie having like a scene where they just flat out say that like selling these Barbie toys are bad or something. I mean, they kind of do, but it's very wishy-washy in a way. But here
I
it's
mean,
like, since it's just Archie comics and all they really care about is the comic image, you can pretty much put whatever you want they wanted in this movie, where it's like, oh yeah, you want to imply that selling Josie and the Pussycats earphones or whatever, you want to imply that's bad? Sure, why not? Whatever. Hey, just, don't have them act too mean to people or whatever. That's the only thing we're paying attention to.
Oh yeah. That's where I think, like, again, like, my thoughts are very kind of conflicted, but I can definitely say that with a film like this, it definitely is shooting for a lot higher than anyone else could have really expected out of something like a franchise based film, especially based on a cartoon. And again, that's where we keep saying, like, ahead of the time, because now it feels like, if we're like, I think with Barbie, even though it's not the next step in this idea. I think a lot of people are going to try to attach it to other, like, mainly toy brands or fluff material, and then have a satirical edge to it. And
Yeah.
then, meanwhile, you have a film like this, which, over 20 years ago was doing pretty much the thing that they're doing now, except this was not expected at the time to do
mhm.
something like
Yeah.
this.
Wasn't expect. Um, I mean, I kind of feel like with the Barbie movie, it's nowadays you do see this advertising where it's like companies make fun of themselves in a, hey man, yeah, we can take a joke. We love to joke about ourselves, whatever. Hey, right?
It's
Hey,
a bit disingenuous. Yeah.
yeah, it does come off. It's where this movie, because like, the Archie comics, they're just people that publish comic books. It's just like, they're a little bit more smaller. It feels a little bit less cynical doing this
Hmm.
because Archie Comics isn't known for selling massive merchandise. It's known for selling comic books at the grocery store. You
Yeah.
don't really there's something less kind of like cynical with this where they're like, yeah, we'll take it in like I don't know, because Archie Comics does kind of do the will laugh at itself when they make comic books where it's like, what if Archie teamed up? What if Archie met the Predator? What if Archie became a horror book or something like that? And it does feel less cynical there because it is like, yeah, you know, I don't know why it feels less cynical, but maybe it's because they're such like a small, inconsequential. They're not Mattel, you know what I mean? Like they're not, and they don't really have any like controversial history about at all, really. So
I think it's really because like companies like were always huge, but they didn't get to this huge of a state to where they could have the power to poke fun at themselves. Well, I mean, supposedly poke fun at themselves and have it like not mean anything. Whereas, back then companies were small, like relatively speaking, smaller, and then there could be a way for people to actually have a funny lens of the increasing commercialization of society and have it actually like mean something more, because
Mhm.
now if you were to do Josie and the Pussycats, despite my issues with it, if you were to do this almost the exact same way, but have it fed through the lens of like 2023 kind of sensibilities, it would be way more obnoxious
oh
about
yeah,
Yeah.
itself.
definitely. I just kind of feel like with the Barbie movie, like it's selling Barbies, it's selling toys. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, where I mean, Josie and the Pussycats is selling something, but it's mostly just selling the movie, which
Yeah.
is it's not like yeah, there was like this kind of like merchandise that wasn't successful at all that was like connected to it, but like it was always just like, oh, we can make movies, maybe we'll make a TV show or like whatever. And it's just like comic books barely make any money. It's like DC
Mhm.
loses money publishing like comic books, but it's like they make up for that in selling Batman TV shirts. So it is just like, I mean, you got to find a way to stay afloat. It's not the same thing as like, we know that like maybe aspects of Barbie are problematic, but we can laugh at ourselves. Yeah, we can make jokes about Ken being gay. Come on, right? Come on, beach blonde hair. He's obviously a gay guy. I don't know. Yeah, this does. I feel like it works better here. I don't know why. Maybe it is because it's such a smaller company. Maybe it's because this came out before it was so much more common to do this kind of like we can laugh at ourselves way or like whatever. Maybe it's because they do directly mock the idea of merchandising this stuff. It does show Josie and the Pussycats merchandise as a bad thing that you should like possibly reject. But I'll get more into that at the ending with all that. Um, yeah, so um well, I'm just blanking a little bit. So the story just kind of goes on. Um, there's that scene where Josie and Alan M they go to the aquarium and they have this sort of serious scene together
Mhm.
behind a fish tank, and there's an ad. Somehow they're in an aquarium, and there's somehow like an ad. Like it just shows how like. And I'll be
Mhm.
honest, I did not notice that on my first watch. I noticed it like on my second watch. And it
Hmm.
just kind of shows that like advertising is something that's so normalized, it's so ingrained that we're almost passive to it. We accept it as just part of our life. Like even in Josie's house, which is like this like it's different from all the other houses, it's like it's not standard suburban home. Even that has a vintage Coke clock in it.
Yeah.
In it, yeah.
Hmm.
It's just like, yeah, it's like, well, it looks cool. I mean, Josie bought it because she thought it looked cool. It's like, oh, look, it's like retro or whatever, but it's still an ad. It's still advertising. Like, oh, Alan M. He likes, he's not a mainstream guy that listens to NSYNC. He likes Led Zeppelin. He's wearing a Zeppelin shirt. At the end of the day, that still is an ad. It's still an ad. What's the difference between wearing a Puma shirt and wearing a Beatles shirt? The only difference is, you're advertising something else. The band is a brand in a way. But I think it really does. I think with the advertising stuff, it does do such a good job with showing just how like egregious product placement and advertising is in movies and just in our day-to-day lives in society. We're almost constantly bombarded. Like this chair, I'm sitting on a chair, the chair has a logo on it. If I move my head, you'll see that logo. It's something that's stuck in our lives constantly. You can't cut it out. Shirts have little logos. It's like you pay for a shirt and then you get to walk around doing free advertising for a company. It's like crazy.
No, it is. It just shows like how even like comfortable things are just a means of showing a product
Yeah.
or a brand of some kind.
Yeah, it's like you pay the same money for that Coke clock as a regular clock, but now that Coke, it's like you're paying to be someone's advertiser, to be someone's pimp, basically, to promote products. Yeah, and it's an aspect I think that has aged so well. It's crazy that when this came out, people didn't get it. They didn't. They genuinely thought all the product placement was unironic. They didn't think it was a
It's
joke. It's like there's a scene where Melody is in the shower and the shower is sponsored by McDonald's. There's
yeah.
McDonald's logos on the door. The sponge she is using is like the McDonald's shake. It's like, really, you didn't pick up on that being satirical? You thought it was like normal? You thought it was normal? How did you think it was normal? But
So in your face with
it's so in your
it. It's-
but I think that is telling that maybe a lot of people do. It's like, yeah, I mean, movies do this. Movies have egregious product placement. It's just a thing that happens, And I think it gets worse and worse. You look at like the Happy Madison movies, where it's like you have product placement that is basically as egregious as the satirical product placement in this film. It went from like Happy Gilmore, where it's like, oh, he does a Subway commercial. Okay, that kind of makes sense. He's an athlete. Subway sponsors athletes. Makes sense. I mean, yeah, sure. He's basically doing a commercial for this place, but fine, whatever. But then you get a couple movies down, Jack and Jill, all that. It's like egregious product placement. He plays an advertising guy. Why? So they can get more product placement. Just bombard you with more ads. That movie is almost a constant advertisement. Of course, obviously it has the greatest scene in cinema, the Dunkachino scene that we all
Oh,
love.
I mean, iconic,
Something's brewing
classic.
at Dunkin'
It is
Donuts.
just cinema.
I know. I mean, that movie, honestly. What's so great? You know who the cinematographer of that movie was?
Oh God, who?
Dean Cundy.
Okay, Dean Cundy. What did he?
Halloween, I believe.
Oh,
Back to the Future. He was
uh,
like, yeah, you're looking it up. It's like he was like the
I'm
go-to guy for Robert
now.
Zemeckis.
My depression is getting really bad right now. Oh no! Why? Why would you do this to yourself?
Yeah,
Oh, why?
it's so sad, because it's like he was a big deal, one of the best in the business. And like, why are you doing an Adam Sandler? He did an Adam Sandler in a Scooby Doo TV movie. It's like cinematographers are like insane because it's like they'll do
The
amazing.
careers are
Yeah, it's like
you
one
go
year,
from Jurassic Park and The Thing.
yeah, to Adam Sandler, or you go from Cool as Ice to Schindler's List. Insane.
Wow.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, it's. I think the movie really does handle this. One thing I like is in Valerie's room, there's like ads, right? And it's like little logos for ads, and it's white on white, which reminds me so much of the subliminal messages in They Live. I think that's a
Yeah,
very nice visual detail because this movie does have some They Live vibes to it. So, uh,
definitely. So
Verhoeven
the
vibes to it.
subliminal messaging.
Yeah, it's great. I really like that stuff. One thing I like, and this is kind of like a good example of it, kind of like taking a trope in these types of movies where it's like, oh, a person becomes a rock star, they get instantly famous, and all that. They're kind of taking on the tropes. Like, isn't it weird we instantly became famous? Like, isn't that supposed to
Oh
take a
yeah,
lot of?
like it pokes fun at the and genuinely of how like there was no sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? There was no
Build up.
like build up to it. There was no like fan base to actually pour over a body of work. It was just, hey, let's just
They're
have one or
fame.
two songs.
They're mega famous in basically a week, and that's kind of how it works in these stories. Because pacing. It's like you got to fit this in less than 2 hours, so go fast.
It's
Um,
also kind of poking fun at this like idea of like the industry plan. It's like artists who, I mean, this kind of does happen.
yeah. Industry
Pop artists kind of
plants.
appearing from nowhere, and it's like
Yeah, or
kind of
they
weird.
appear because they're like related to someone that's like actually really famous. You know,
Yeah,
like like they're kind of like how why does Big Mouth have 7 seasons? Well, Google who Nick Kroll's father is, and then you'll probably figure out. Uh, yeah. Let's see. But when I get to that, because there's like this conflict between like Josie and Valerie, where it's like this is a typical trope you see in these types of movies, where it's like you're making the band all about you. You're not thinking about the band as a whole. You're being selfish, but in reality, that's not actually happening at all. It's just the record company purposefully manipulating them to think that way, so they'll fight and be distracted and won't notice the subliminal messaging.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it again goes back to how like no human decisions or beliefs or actions are ever genuinely made by somebody. It's made at the behest of someone else, but only so that they could like create a narrative because they mention with Parker Posey's character, she mentions how, oh, we could do scandals, plane crashes, deaths. Like there is no like genuine like human story being told. It's always like, okay, we need to have this for marketability.
Yeah, they do things to these people to purposefully keep them more controllable, whether it be drugs or getting them into like weirdo like religious stuff, just so they can seem crazy to the general public, and then people won't listen to them. But I like how it's like because the whole like people easily like breaking up, it's kind of like an unrealistic thing where it's like, Val and Josie, they talk about it and it's like, well, they've been friends for years, so they immediately work out this misunderstanding, which is what happens in real life. People that, movies always do this thing where it's like a misunderstanding causes these people to like act super irrationally and instantly break up, where it's just like normal people who've known each other for years, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't immediately go crazy over something. They'd talk it out. They'd work it out because they've been friends for so long. They know each other, and that happens. That happens here. It's like, duh, we know each other. Why? We'll just talk out our problems. How people do in real life. Um, Well, anyway, so of course then, well, the record company, they send Val and Melody to TRL, and then while Josie's alone, they get her to listen to this record, which has more brainwashing to basically make her do that, convince her that the band should be all about her and she should kick out and fight with Val and Mel. And then, did you guys like the TRL bit where they try to kill him?
Yes and no, because there was points where like the joke with the one guy trying to do like the imitations kind of fell flat for me, and there was just some like awkwardness with the scene. Like I liked the beginning of that scene, but then as it kind of like went on, it just started to become way more awkward, and I just didn't find myself laughing at it, at least
The
personally.
the the Bill Cosby joke was a little.
I mean, it's the 2000s. It was way before people. Um,
Well, I disagree. I disagree. I think it's actually funnier. That bit where he does the Bill Cosby impression is actually funnier now that he's like a rapist that everyone hates.
Was that when did that come out?
2001, the movie. So this
Yeah.
was like way before the
Yeah.
allegations
Way
were
before.
coming out. So that's just more basically like that was just the time period it came out.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
obviously that wouldn't be like a thing anymore.
well, yeah, because Bill Cosby is just one of the most kind of like hack basic impressions that people can do. It's like doing a Jack
Yeah.
Nicholson or a Bobcat or a Gilbert Godfrey. It's like almost anyone can do them. So they're
They have
like the
very
most,
specific voices.
yeah, they're very. You don't even have to put much effort to make them sound funny. They have but it's just like they're the most hack impressions you can do. You know, it's like they're like it's like doing an Austin Powers impression. It's like it's kind of like come on. Yeah. But I do like that scene because I like how kind of like weird and surreal. Like they have a fake set, but like later on they did record at the actual TRL place. So it's like they decided, no, we won't film there. We'll make this fake, super fake looking set of the TRL, and we'll have all these like we'll have all these like cardboard cutouts of famous people in the audience. And
That was pretty funny because it's just so strange.
it's so
There's
bizarre.
there's no real reason to make such an obviously fake set other than for this visual.
Yeah, that's what I like. And I like how it's like, how are they going to do it? Well, they're going to get this guy that does impressions, and they're going to get Carson Daly to just, I guess, beat them to death with baseball bats. And I really like the line he says. It's like, is this TRL? No, it's more like TR dead, right? Because if you said TR die, that would kind of make more sense because it kind of rhymes. T die. Real? No, wait. Total request die. Yeah, because live rhymes with die. That's what you should have said, but he purposely like fucks it up by saying dead. I always find that's funny. Like purposefully fucking up a joke, kind of like what I did by getting it wrong. Anyway, but yeah, I think the scene maybe it goes on a bit long, but I like how it's just weird and bizarre. I like weird and bizarre scenes like that. Um, so anyway, they escape. They go back to Josie. Josie's been completely brainwashed, and he tells them that she's the famous one. Screw off. So they do. And then they do the whole like montage where she's like walking around and being like, actually I should be friends, but it's a bit different because it's like, no, she doesn't. When she sees their picture, she gets angry because she's being controlled, she's being brainwashed, and she only comes around until the headphones come off and she's no longer just getting constantly inundated with this brainwashing. So
Yeah.
that is I like that. I like how it somewhat still has to do these things, but at least they're putting like this kind of like spin on it where it's like, we know this is kind of like a stupid thing to do, so they're being brainwashed, right? Because people wouldn't realistically act this way unless they were being heavily manipulated to do this, because it's like it's not really convincing. It's like contrived, but um, yeah. So Josie ends up figuring out that the mega sound thing is being used to put subliminal messages in the music. She does this sort of with the help of the Alexanders, which is once again, this would have been a scene where the manager guy could do something, could help her figure it out because maybe he actually knows something about like the music stuff. But instead, they just stand around and bother her about stuff. And she finds out like not only are they selling products, but they're also selling the band. You know, Josie and the Pussycats, it's best band, buy their album, because
Mm-hmm.
music. That's what music videos are. I mean, it's advertising for the band. A band is they have a logo. They are a brand. They're being advertised. Which I really like that. I really like that they put that in. How it's they're not just advertising for products. They're advertising the band, the idea of this band. I think that's really cool. So what happens? Well, Fiona comes in, brings Josie to the concert, tells her that if she doesn't do it, they're gonna make their friends die in an accident, um, and all that, and then all that gets interrupted when it turns out DeJour is actually alive. What did you guys think about DeJour coming back?
Kind of expected, but it was still kind of funny how they didn't even get injured because of the crashes, because they got beaten up by Metallica fans.
Yeah, they safely land the plane, no issue at all. But in the parking lot of Metallica concert, and because they're like a boy band, the exact opposite of the metalheads, all the metal fans just be kicked the crap out of them until they're in cartoon full body cast. And then they come back and they're gonna stop Fiona and her evil plan, but since they're all in cast, they completely fail. But Josie is able to get out and try to save her friends, and then she gets into like a big fight with Fiona, and then all the people, it's the typical like ending big comedy fight scene. But oh wow, I can't believe this. I like I really like Fiona. I really like when the Pussycats they meet her for the first time, and she takes them to her girls only room, and she talk like she you find out that like basically she's still like a 14, 15-year-old girl. She's really into sleepovers and braiding hair, and I found it really funny. It's probably my favorite part of the movie. Like I do say, I think Parker carries a good amount of the film, and so does Cummings.
Yeah, there is very funny, and there is kind of like a real sadness to it as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is. You feel mildly bad for them because what happens is the machine gets destroyed, so the concert is ruined. But you find out that the big secret message, which you probably think is, oh, she's gonna try to take over the world or something, but it's just like, no, she just wanted everyone to like her and think she was cool and like be her friend. And then you realize it's like, basically she was like a loser nerd with like no friends. People made fun of her for speech impediment stuff, and she never got to have fun and be a real girl. And I like that bit where, you know, Wyatt reveals that they went to high school together and his British accent is fake and he's actually bald and fat and her teeth are actually like crooked and ugly and they fall in love with each other. What do you guys think?
Um, Slightly funny, but then again, this is the part of the movie where it just kind of loses it for me. Um, Maybe because I don't know, it just wasn't clicking for me by that point, and like it is funny as an idea, and I do find it funny the British actor saying that he doesn't actually speak in a British
Yeah.
accent. That's pretty funny. Um, Again, that's where I just feel conflicted because I do think like scenes like that are fun, but there just seems to be kind of like an awkward feel to it that just I've never like if I feel something awkward, I just can't enjoy something in the moment. It just can never happen for me. And that's kind of how I felt when I was watching that scene. It started to become too awkward for my liking at a certain point.
Yeah. Oh, Loki, what'd you think?
I kind of agree. It was there was like an honesty to like it was kind of sweet, but also like yeah, there with the kind of artificial feeling directing, it was both very fun, but at times also kind of hard to connect to, which was kind of the point. But at times it did kind of jar me. I feel
Yeah.
like more towards the end where it kind of had these like romantic endings.
Yeah, it's wrapping up. I mean, I think because I like Parker Posey a lot and I do think she's funny, maybe that makes me more lenient on it. Maybe it makes
Mhm.
me, maybe like spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down or whatever, so I can overlook kind of the flawed bits of it. But then they actually do the concert, and this is like an aspect, because they learn, hey, like your clothes, all these things, whether or not you're popular, whatever, having the coolest clothes, having the style, that stuff does not matter. It doesn't make you happy. And all that. That's what the manager guy finds out. So he takes off his expensive shirt, and then he takes off his expensive pants, and I guess and now he's pretty much naked. you know. But Josie comes out, and they're gonna play their song, and they say, it's like, this is our song. You can like it or don't like it, but just choose for yourself. And see, that's an aspect that I really like about the movie, where it says, like, be yourself. Because a lot of times when movies have messages of be yourself, be an individual, they always are also like stuff that's considered not individual or like whatever. So it's like be yourself, but don't be the jock. Don't be.
Oh, sorry.
No, say your thing.
Oh, no. Something just came up on my end. No, you can keep going.
Porgies.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Where it's like, oh yeah, be an individual, but don't be the cheerleader. Don't be like the jock. A lot of times you can come off as though it's saying that it's like wrong to like stuff that's like flashy or cheesy or like, yeah, like it's kind of shallow. But I like how the movie's like, no, there's nothing wrong with teen girls liking boy bands. They're not stupid. Like, a 14-year-old girl isn't a stupid consumer because she enjoys NSYNC or like something that's kind of poppy and maybe it's not super meaningful. Like, if that's what she likes, then, it's what you like, and there's nothing wrong with like liking stuff that's mainstream. There's nothing wrong with liking stuff that's not mainstream as long as it's what you genuinely like and you're being like true for yourself. It doesn't matter what it is as long as you're being real with yourself.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's where that kind of sincerity really shines.
Yeah, like
This
because
film does, although it's very on the nose satirically and very exaggerated, is like a sincerity to how it deals with like, boy band culture and
yeah,
comic books and like it does genuinely care about these
yeah,
respect the people who
yeah, because that's what because it's like, you know, when you make fun of stuff like boy bands or like dolls or whatever, I mean, who are you making fun of? The 5-year-old girls that enjoy them? Wow, dude, you're really cool dunking on those kids. You really put little Susie in her place, dude. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, fuck that little girl. Man, how dare she like things that I, a 30-year-old man, don't like? Man, doesn't she know she's a dumb consumer? Yeah, hey, get on my level, okay? I like cool stuff. I, it's like stupid and mean. When you really think about it, it's kind of stupid and mean spiritedly. Like, why are we
Oh,
dunking on little girls for liking boy bands? It's like, isn't that cruel? Isn't that mean?
it is.
Yeah. And I like how that I like, I like how it's not mean and cynical about that stuff because like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with liking pop music. You know, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, not everyone can like the things that the outsiders like. Whatever, it's like little girls. They like dolls. They like dresses. They like the color pink. What are you gonna call, like, because most of the time these stories are, you know, they're made by adult men. So it's like, oh wow, this adult man is saying that a 4-year-old stupid for liking In Sync. It's like, isn't this kind of cruel? I mean, because you don't really understand like what girls like. It's like, oh wow, I don't like this, so it must be bad. I think it's a very juvenile, mean thing to like act about.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, because that is like a thing. I see the Barbie movie, and it's like it does feel kind of like iffy on a place. Like there's times where it feels like it's being too serious or something. Like sometimes it's satirical with what it's saying, but then sometimes it's saying very similar stuff, like dead seriously. So you're not really sure like how you're supposed to really like
Yeah.
process it and whatever.
It tried to have like genuine emotions, but it didn't feel as sincere.
Yeah, it didn't feel sincere. It felt like very inconsistent in this.
I think, I mean, I like that movie. I think it's funny, very funny at times.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I think it's very
at
telling.
other times it just it's.
Yeah, no, the movie's the movie is funny. I liked Ryan Gosling in it, but when the movie's trying to be serious or whatever, it kind of falls because it's like sometimes it's saying something sarcastically, but then it's saying something so similar, like dead serious, and it just feels like confused. But Josie and the Pussycats does not feel confused at all. It really does. I think it kind of handles. I think it handles this topic with a certain level of nuance because, like I said, I really appreciate how like it doesn't rag on people for liking stuff that is shallow. They're just they're ragging on just general conformity. But it's like you can do whatever you want. If all the stuff you like is the mainstream stuff, go ahead. If that's what you like, fine. It's like we all hate the MCU. We all think that's terrible, but like I'm not going to tell like a kid that he's like I'm not going to tell like a teenager that they're stupid for wanting to see the new big Marvel blockbuster action movie. It's like, yeah, I mean, you're a kid. Of course you're going to love to see your favorite superhero punch things. Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, do I hate consumer stuff? Yeah, sure. But do I hate but I also hate people that go on about like, oh wow, look at this consumer, and then it's like they'll like make fun of like a 14-year-old for being excited to go see the next Marvel movie. It's like, wow, dude, you're really dunking on that child.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna dunk on little kids even if I don't like the movie. uh but yeah, and then they do their song and all that, and yeah, I love I love this movie. I would say it's a personal favorite. I probably give it like an 8 out of 10. What about you guys? Kind of overall thoughts?
My thoughts are I understand what it's doing. I can appreciate it. I found that after a while, it became a deal where I was going to myself, I get it already, which did kind of like hurt my enjoyment of it. So I can't go out of my way to say that I am like part of the cult fandom, but I'm definitely not going to ever say that the film is a failure. It's just not what I'm looking for. And sometimes it can just be as simple as that. It's just not my wavelength. And I don't even want to do ratings for me personally anyway, because if I say this is a 5 or a 6, it just kind of like, I think it's like at best it's a decent like idea done decently well. It's just not my thing. So it would just be like, if I were to just do it, I would just say 6 and then move on from there.
Man, like the movie says, like it or don't like it. So, if it didn't vibe with you, it didn't vibe, that's all fine. Loki, what did you think?
I had a lot of fun with it. I want to call it a personal favorite, but it was kind of refreshing in the much of these kind of self-aware comic book movies. Where I felt like this handled that, which was nice, and the satire was, I mean, it was pretty in your face, and at times could be repetitive, but I think it was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
the purpose of this, and yeah, I liked. I mean, there was kind of a nostalgia to seeing like all these fisheye lenses and the rapid slow mo and speed up editing and the style. It has a charm to it that I feel like kind of a lost art form. So I appreciate it.
Well, way too many internet critics, who, they should probably watch a movie like this, maybe they could learn something about the but they're like, no,
There's an appeal to that style that I think is underrated.
yeah, it's just like, no, man, this is stupid. If I don't like it, it must be bad and wrong. Sorry. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I don't like something, that means it's bad. Yo, every
You
movie
noob.
Every
You
movie should appeal to white Gen X men. If it doesn't, got bad news, buddy. It's fucking bad. What do you think about that,
Absolutely.
buddy? Hey man, you can take your black and white movies and fuck right off, man. I live in a time where we got colors, man. How many colors does Casablanca have? 2. How many colors does my movie have? An ass load. Boom. Beat you, bitch, you hack.
Yeah, I definitely think online criticism of this like visual style is definitely a little mean spirited. I think there is a real appeal.
Oh, you know what's kind of crazy?
Artificial feeling filmmaking.
Nah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can kind of see them maybe having a point. Sometimes it does get a little bit like
a lot of
obnoxious,
films that did this also didn't really utilize it well.
Yeah, I mean,
there's examples like Josie and the Pussycats.
Yeah, it's so funny as I go on a little rant, but it's like, actually, maybe they have a little bit of a point. I would say they're probably right half the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'll agree. It was kind of annoying that for like a few years, every single film was kind of shot like this.
Yeah, every film had those leopard spot editing transitions. It was pretty weird. But I'll give kind of my I think the movie's good. I kind of recognize that like it is flawed. One thing I would say, the kind of messaging stuff, it's very just upfront, but
yeah,
the movie doesn't feel like pretend, because sometimes like movies that have very upfront messages, they kind of come off a little bit like pretentious and annoying. But like this film, even though it's very upfront, it's very obvious with its message because all of it's done in this super like jokey, tongue-in-cheek way. It's not annoying and pretentious. It's for what it's talking about, and because it does kind of go into depth into like this stuff about advertising, how like the music industry works. It never once gets anywhere close to like being pretentious at all or seeming full of itself at all. It's very it does everything with this kind of like jokey tone and whatever. I think it's impressive to because it's like I'm not one of those internet critics that think like, oh, being pretentious, that's an instant death nail to like a film being good. It's like a film can be pretentious and still be like good or even like intelligent or something. Like being sometimes it's like annoying with its messaging. It's like fine, I guess. I mean, sure. Sometimes the film's full of itself. Aren't we all sometimes up our own asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just
absolutely.
depends. It's like you can visit your own asshole occasionally. I mean, it's yours. Just don't spend 2 hours up it. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. But I do recognize it's like it has some stuff that's like annoying. Some of the jokes don't land. Some of it is just the typical stuff you'd see in a movie like this. The love interest stuff, it's not that good. Um, they try, sure. There's some funny joke stuff, but I think I like the Y2K era cheese. I like that. I think a lot of stuff is funny. A funny thing I noticed, a little Easter egg, is one of the subliminal messages you see is "Can't Hardly Wait" was overrated. Oh, we forgot to talk about when the when Fiona's plan fails, the government agents who were working with her come in. It's like, what's all this? And it's like, Fiona and Riot, they're like brainwashing people with subliminal messages, and the government's like, wow, that's terrible. Looks like we got to take these people in. And they reveal that like they were going to shut down the operation anyway, and they were going to, where it's like, well, no, we're going to put messages in movies now, as if they don't already do that, as if they haven't already been doing that for years. But and then it's like a little thing pops up. Josie and the Pussycats is the best movie ever, and then the caption says "Join the Army." Like that's a pretty funny like bit. But I do think the film's funny at times. I think it's flawed in like how somewhat it is. It is the Josie and the Pussycats movie. You know, at the end of the day, it is a live action adaptation of a cartoon. So it does have some kid humor that's not very funny. It's got love interest stuff that I don't think works all the way. But it's not the worst thing ever. Even that stuff, I think it's pretty good. I'm a big fan of it. And I love that pop punk soundtrack. I mean, come on, it's I've listened to it a couple times. It's a real hit. So anyway, that's final thoughts. Vic, do you have anything you want to promote?
Yeah. So begrudgingly, my Twitter handle is called @bitchthegreat1, and I have a YouTube channel myself that I'm going to try to upload videos on more very soon, just with work and whatnot, called Laughing Jackal Media, where it's like anime or movies and all sorts of great geekness. And yeah, that's about all I want to promote.
All right, Loki, you got things to promote?
Shadow Loki on Twitter.
Gotcha. Shadow Loki at Twitter.